Much of Virginia's economy relies on federal spending, whether through civilian agencies or military installations and operations. As that spending is reduced and federal workers and contractors in Virginia lose their jobs, the Commissioner of Virginia Works wants you to know about state resources that can help you pivot to new opportunities. Commissioner Nicole Overly joins me now. Commissioner Overly, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Terry. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I know Virginia hosts a significant federal presence, both civilian agencies and military installations. Tell us what impacts the federal workforce reductions and the contract terminations are having on Virginia's economy and its residents.
Well, first of all, Terry, I want to make sure you and your listeners know we track unemployment claims for Virginia for both federal workers and also the top 100 contractors really on a daily basis. And that is data that we're looking at to make sure that we really understand really how to make sure that we are building and supporting the resources that we need to help Virginians through career pivots. And we do that in any type of situation that we call a rapid response. And actually, in total, we've really had just under 1,000 unemployment claims to date from self-identified federal workers and another 800 or so from the top largest federal contractors. And so the interesting thing, I think, for me at Virginia Works, the Commonwealth's Workforce Development Agency, is this is one of the biggest indicators I track because it gives me a direct sense of the individuals who need immediate support. It's honestly lower than I think what a lot of the media seems to indicate. And maybe that's because it's because some people don't know the benefits that they're eligible for to some degree. And that's part of why I'm here today. And maybe it's also because they're finding their next career path quickly, or they're being called back, or they're retiring, or they're planning to. Honestly, it's hard to know a lot of those highly individualized situations. I've heard bits and pieces of all of them. And we just don't have a lot of the data in real time around some of that as much as we have, some of the projected data that we're all hearing about. So my goal really is to focus on the data we do have, and most of all, my goal is to keep spreading the word about encouraging anyone who's in any way looking for options to support their career pivots, that they can access those and what those resources are, and that we're trying to build more of them every day.
I suppose it could also be a bit of a lag as people may be on deferred retirement, or they can't really submit their claims until they come off the rolls, which might not be until September, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I guess it's good news that there's only about 1,800 so far. Are you seeing any second or third order effects in particular communities, the places that have risen up to support this workforce?
Great question. So, overall, Virginia's unemployment rate is still pretty low. It's for about 3.2%. It's about a full point lower than the national average and pretty low in comparison to our surrounding states. And initial claims and continuing claims are still low as well. And so, I know there are projections of significant impact of sort of that secondary and tertiary degree. I'm not sure how much we're seeing them yet that pan out the way that the projections maybe have indicated. And most of all, again, because I'm focused on the workforce angles of things, I'm looking at things like unemployment claims data as data points across every industry, not necessarily just those of individuals who are federal workers or contractors, but still haven't really seen as much from secondary or tertiary impacted sectors. And if we do, we'll continue to mobilize resources to support individuals there in every way that we can, whether in person, online, and really across the board.
Are there particular communities that you're really watching closely for this? I'm imagining as remote work continued past COVID that the federal workforce may be really distributed across the state as opposed to concentrated in places like Northern Virginia or, say, the Hampton Roads area.
Certainly. Actually, part of the reason why we have been as focused with VirginiaHasJobs.com and the virtual hiring events that we've been running statewide, we've been really trying to make sure that we're connecting anyone, whether you're a federal worker or you in some way are working in an industry impacted in some way, but really just also the fact that we know we have so many open jobs across Virginia. So we have 228,000 open jobs across Virginia. We want to make sure that we're connecting every Virginian and those who might want to move to Virginia with all of those opportunities in different ways. And so certainly focused on resources that can be provided in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, but my job is the Commonwealth in totality. So, of course, I'm trying to make sure to connect everyone across the board to anything that would be helpful to them and to the many jobs that are available across every region.
I'm speaking with Nicole Overly. She's the Commissioner of Virginia Works for the Commonwealth of Virginia. So let's talk about those connection programs. What do you have in place that people should know about and that they can access?
Well, first, maybe I'll start with just a little bit of the overview of the unemployment and reemployment journey. And I want to make sure your listeners know, no matter what's happening to you in your career journey, whether you're a federal government worker or not, you have options and you can access those in a variety of different ways. And so really in any layoff event, regardless of what's happening specifically related to the federal workforce, we have, plant closures and other things that happen across the Commonwealth, and the workforce system is designed to be responsive to those. And so, first of all, on unemployment benefits, as standard practice, you apply for unemployment insurance in the state where you've worked. And you can do that through the VEC at the Virginia Employment Commission at vec.virginia.gov. And I mention that because I think it's really important to make sure that you know, especially for those of us who live in the DMV area, if you live in DC but you work in Virginia, you apply for unemployment benefits in the state where you worked, but you can access workforce support in the state where you live. And so wherever is closest to you, if you would like to go to a Virginia Career Work Center and get your resume reviewed, get access to career coaching, training, reskilling options, those are all available to you in person if you visit an in-person workforce center. But we've really also tried to streamline and improve access to digital services. And so VirginiaHasJobs.com is a website that we really created, I would say, very rapidly and in a very agile way. We add resources to it every single day. In fact, just yesterday, we rolled out a new page on that website for small businesses and federal contractors who maybe are interested in pivoting their business model a little bit. So we have a new page added there, right? So we're always trying to use that to connect to some of the resources that we hear would be of value, resources that individuals are interested in. And so I would really recommend, first and foremost, that you take a moment, if you have not, and visit that site. It's a good launch pad to a lot of different things. And so our goal with that site is to link to both public sector and private sector jobs. It's organized regionally. It's organized by top industries. It takes you straight to open jobs via really many of the job search websites that you may be looking through anyway, around LinkedIn, Indeed, and it also links you to education and training opportunities too, apprenticeship opportunities. We have a database of open apprenticeship opportunities via there as well. And then I'll also mention, especially if you're less familiar maybe with going to in-person resources through Virginia CareerWorks, Virginia Has Jobs is a great way to start to get connected to things like virtual hiring events that you can do from the comfort of your own home. If you put your contact information in and a little bit about what you're interested in on the Contact Us page on Virginia Has Jobs, someone will reach out to you and have an individualized conversation with you to make sure that you get to the right place, whether it's in person or virtual. And a lot of that is really what we do as the Commonwealth Workforce Development Agency. It is our job to help people find those resources, connect with some of them that are more local or community-based, help people access resources maybe across other regions if they're interested in making a move, interested in making an industry pivot, and really helping that process of career coaching and changing your resume potentially and navigating through the job search, starting networking and LinkedIn and all that. That is the crux of what we do. And so I think we're trying to make sure that we're providing those resources in the most streamlined, simple, easy to access ways to meet the digital age.
I think it's so helpful to know in a time of real stress, when you've lost your job, you don't know what's next, that there is an in-person option that folks can take and have someone sort of across the desk who's nodding at them and providing support. I know you've also been doing some webinars lately for folks who are interested in this space. What are some tips and tricks that you have for the new job seekers?
Absolutely. So we ran a webinar last Thursday for federal workers and contractors. I think it was a really helpful thing, in particular, to hear from some employers who are hiring in the Northern Virginia area. So we featured a few of them. They shared a lot of really interesting perspectives on the job market of today and how to market yourself with transferable skills. So, for example, if you spent years in the federal government working on grants administration, for example, how you turn that into a resume that would be appealing potentially for a private sector employer who's hiring maybe for a role in finance or in their budget management team, right? So thinking through how to really understand what that underlying skill set is. I shared an example that I think is a really powerful one around just unexpected ways of thinking about transferable skills. And so I've gotten to know a number of success stories, I would say, in Virginia's workforce system. One of them was a music teacher who made a pivot into coding after a pretty short time doing a coding boot camp. And the interesting thing about that story, I think, is, you're in a process from understanding, maybe that you're interested in making some type of industry shift, realizing that you are not, maybe that really the fundamental thing that you're interested in there is working in a different language, right? And that is really the fundamental underlying connection, even though there's these two very distinct jobs of music teacher and coder, that maybe there's some fundamental similarity, and you can actually take the skill set or some of the things that you've learned in one and transfer it to something that in some cases is very distinctly different. Not everyone's going to have that same type of experience, but I think it just goes to show that for anyone experiencing or wanting to make a career shift, so much of it is how you think about and really understand that transferable skill. And so we talked a lot about that. I think the other big topic on everyone's mind a lot right now, I think, is, especially if you particularly have been in the federal workforce for a number of years, how do you approach networking in this type of environment, right? Especially when others are also looking for some of the same jobs that maybe you may be. One of the suggestions that I think is really powerful and helpful is every time you meet someone, or even just when you're getting to know your network through the lens of doing a job search like this, just ask everyone who you meet with to introduce you to one other person. And you'd be surprised how quickly that grows your network. It's not necessarily a huge ask of someone, but if you can just have somebody introduce you to one other person that they think maybe would be a helpful connection for you, it's a really easy way to grow your network and to do it very organically, rather than to feel like you necessarily have to be really engaged in the LinkedIn style of networking these days and all that. So there are many different ways to do it effectively, but I think I thought that was a really helpful example to throw out.
Commissioner Nicole Overly, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive, along with the Virginia Works resources. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever